Welcome to this special edition of the Warrandyte Diary podcast. I'm Diary Editor Sandy Miller, and I'm here with our co-editor James Poyner. Welcome to this special edition of the Warrandyte Diary podcast, where we are discussing the Warrandyte Community Facilities Review, recently released by Manningham Council. So in July 2024, 18 months ago, Manningham Council announced it was going to commence consultation with the community groups in Warrandyte for a community facilities review.
At that time, Manningham Council said the review was part of Manningham's Community Infrastructure Plan, CIP, and that the 2023 consultation on the CIP highlighted the need for an holistic review into the provision of community facilities in Warrandyte. They stated the review would help guide future investment into community facilities in Warrandyte and that the community groups consulted would have a chance to share ideas for future services and buildings, including opportunities for partnerships and facility sharing.
Council announced that consultation was complete in September 2024, with an expectation that they would report to the community within the coming few months. In July 2025, they announced that,
due to the complex nature of this report, work is taking longer than anticipated. But once the draft is finalised, we look forward to sharing more information with the community in the coming months.
By this stage, many in the community were getting concerned about the length of time this report was taking to release, with vital maintenance works and projects being put on hold while awaiting the outcomes of the report. A source at the community bank told me that they had tens of thousands of dollars in grant funding, unable to be used because projects were awaiting the findings of the council's review. Over the past 6 months, the Diary received a number of letters expressing frustration over the delays, including this.
Dear Diary, as long-standing and passionate members of the Warrandyte community, we are deeply concerned by the current situation surrounding the proposed works at the Warrandyte Scout Hall and what appears to be a departure from Manningham Council's earlier commitment to refurbish the building to ensure it is safe, compliant and fit for community use. Equally troubling is the lack of transparency and communication regarding the community infrastructure study, which we understand was completed and delivered to Council in early 2025. This report was intended to guide future planning and investment across Warrandyte's vital community spaces. Yet, despite repeated requests, the report has not been released publicly. Several excellent community proposals, including a much-needed men's shed and improvements to existing shared facilities, were paused pending completion of this study. The ongoing delay in releasing its finding is preventing meaningful progress on projects that address long-standing needs within our community. We believe the residents of Warrandyte deserve openness and accountability from their council. We call on Manningham City Council to immediately release the community infrastructure study and to reaffirm its commitment to the refurbishment of the Scout Hall and other essential community projects. Our community thrives when decisions are made transparently and in genuine partnership with those they affect. It's time for clarity, action, and respect for the people who call Warrandyte home.
Not 24 hours after the November Diary was released, we received a phone call from Manningham Council advising us that the Facilities Review report was about to be released and that we would get an embargoed copy and an opportunity to ask questions of the Mayor, Jim Grievous. The day before the deadline of the December Diary, we received our embargoed copy of the report, which was embargoed until the day the Diary was to be published, December the 8th. For those that don't know the importance of an embargo, it means we are under strict orders not to disclose the contents of the document until the specified date. To break this embargo would break the trust of Council and irreparably damage the Diary's relationship with Council and any future dealings. This restricted us from gaining any community feedback on the report.
Given we were a few weeks from Christmas and had just put out our last edition for the year, Council's small window for community consultation of 10 days made it difficult for us to report on the community's reaction to the review in a timely manner.
Even when, on December 12, Council extended the feedback window to February 2, we still don't have an edition until after the feedback window closes. Nonetheless, I produced a list of 53 questions that, in my understanding of our community, represented its likely reaction. As requested, I provided these questions to Council Comms team to forewarn the Mayor. They came back to me with a request to limit my questions to my top 6. I've been promised answers on the other 47 questions, but they have not been provided to date. So what's in the report? So the Community Facilities Review consists of a discussion about the factors that come into play in Warrandyte, including population, currently 6,000 in the Manningham side of the river, planning controls, extensive, including bushfire, environment, Indigenous, heritage and flooding, topography issues, and lack of available land, lack of current services availability, particularly childcare. The review included a needs analysis, which found that there is significant demand for childcare and kindergarten, as well as informal recreation, running, walking, cycling, and library services. Due to Warrandyte's stable population, it notes demand remains constant for formal sporting facilities, meeting places, non-sporting activities for young people, and arts and cultural spaces. Whether that means these demands are being met, though, is a matter of opinion. The report then outlines the council-owned or managed facilities in Warrandyte and South Warrandyte. Warrandyte has 2 early years centres, a kindergarten and a childcare centre, 3 community halls, Warrandyte Hall, Warrandyte Scout Hall and Warrandyte South Hall, a community centre, a museum, 4 outdoor sporting complexes, Warrandyte Reserve, footy, cricket, netball, Warrandyte Tennis Club, Coleman Reserve Tennis Courts, Coleman Park and a horse and pony club, and an indoor sports facility, basketball courts at Andersons Creek Primary School. It also notes there are several non-council community facilities, including the Mechanics Institute Hall and Pottery Studio, Community Church Hall, as well as the halls, theatres and sports grounds at the schools. The review found that many facilities could accommodate increased use, which says it presents opportunities for consolidation. It also said it found issues with several of Warrandyte's existing facilities in terms of accessibility, parking, potential for flooding, or not being fit for purpose in terms of condition or configuration, lack of storage and toilet facilities. The report then goes on to note that there are 3 facilities unable to meet current or future demand, including the Taroona Avenue Kindergarten, the Masonic Avenue Childcare Centre and the Stigant Reserve Scout Hall. The facilities it notes are under capacity are the Coleman Reserve and South Warrandyte Hall. Both of these are in South Warrandyte, which illustrates a lack of desire for those in central Warrandyte to travel to South Warrandyte for recreational pursuits, and also the lack of public transport options to get to these spaces. I should note there are several things the community has been calling for many years, including utilising the old petrol station or the former Warrandyte Cafe or building the men's shed under the tennis club rooms. Council have noted that all of these ideas are not feasible. The opportunities. Okay, so let's cut to the chase. Council have identified 7 opportunities that they would like to investigate further. So let's discuss these one at a time. Opportunity 1. Warrandyte Community Hall. To refurbish and expand Warrandyte Community Hall, Warrandyte Reserve, to accommodate increased use such as scouts and men's shed. To undertake feasibility, site and concept planning for the proposed refurbishment and expansion of the hall in collaboration with existing users of the Community Hall, the Scout Hall and the Warrandyte Reserve. Work with the Toy Library to understand their future needs and investigate alternatives to accommodate their needs. Determine the future of the existing Scout Hall in collaboration with key stakeholders, pending the ability to relocate the Warrandyte Scout Group and men's shed to an alternate location. The diaries reached out to the senior citizens, but they have chosen not to provide feedback at this time. So we spoke to Chris Padham and Gillian Garvey from the Scouts to see what their thoughts were around this.
Our reaction really is that we're not adverse to moving from the existing Scout Hall, but that's on the proviso we're moving to another purposely allocated building for Scouts that will be a recognisable Scout Hall in Warrandyte. We don't want to just get lost in the masses. Scouts has a big presence in Warrandyte and we want to maintain that, and we think it's valuable for Warrandyte to have that presence here.
One of the issues with the Warrandyte Scout Hall highlighted in the report is the building's lack of accessibility under the Disability Discrimination Act. Chris Chewy Padham noted that the issue of DDA compliance has been something Scouts have been trying to resolve for some time.
And that was one of the things we were trying to negotiate with the council to make it DDA compliant. The council seems to feel that it's too hard. We don't actually believe that's the case. It's just reticence on the council's part to commit what they need to make their facilities DDA compliant.
He goes on to talk about a funding and upgrade plan for the hall that council agreed to, which has subsequently been scrapped.
So in 2014, an agreement was signed between Gary Foster, who was the then group leader, and the Manningham Council to upgrade the hall. Since then, it has been year after year delay and stalling, and that until about the early 2020s, when they brought architects in. This is council employed architects to design a upgrade to the hall that complied with all of the overlays and complied with DDA requirements and so forth. And they were all submitted to Scouts Victoria, who signed them off, as we did ourselves. It was a modest upgrade. We would have preferred the hall to be enlarged, but that couldn't happen apparently because of the overlays, so we were making do with what we had, but with better facilities and DDA compliance. So that had all been budgeted for, and there was money in the budget for it, and then each year the council would say, it's pushed forward to the next year's budget until 2025, when all of a sudden it disappeared from the budget and there's no money allocated to the Scout Hall. There was initially $370,000, which was budgeted for 25, and then a further $600,000 budgeted for 2026. So 970 all up.
Also, our understanding that over about $100,000 was spent on the architectural planning and drawings that were done in the early 2000s. So that money, we believe, has already been spent on upgrading our hall.
Chewy and Gillian said the Scouts participated enthusiastically with the consultation, but feels that the opportunity presented does not meet the needs of Warrandyte Scouts, which could have existential implications for the Scout group.
We went with the council to have a look at the community hall, which seems to have been renamed. That used to be the Senior Citizens, and now they've diplomatically renamed it Community Hall. It's great. It would suit us ideally as a Scout Hall, but the constraints that they've placed on us if we were to move there means that it's not practical or safe for us to conduct scouting in that hall in its current form, and they have indicated that they would not consider altering it to make it suitable for scouting. They would not allow us to label it as a Scout Hall and have scouting stuff on the outside of the hall, which means our presence in Warrandyte becomes hidden, and scouting works when it's known. So whilst the hall itself would make a magnificent Scout Hall, the conditions they've put on it sort of precluded. I mean, having the Senior Citizens Centre 2 hours, two nights a week does not constitute a Scout Hall, and would not be acceptable to us.
And the other locations that council have suggested are not ideal for our scouting group, because we are Warrandyte Scouts, so we need access to the river. It's really important that we are able to use the river and walk to the river. We also need access to the market, because one of our major fundraising activities, of course, is our monthly barbecue. So if we were to move to some of the other locations that council suggested, it would mean that we actually wouldn't be able to easily run our market stall, because we inevitably are making numerous trips from our stall back up to the hall every single week that we're on. And also we need access to the Warrandyte environment. We need to be able to walk with our 5-year-old Joeys out and go for a bush walk. We need to be able to let our Joeys and our Scouts and Cubs run around outside safely in an open environment. So we really do need to be somewhere which is in central Warrandyte. Also, I think one of our big fears is that if we do relocate out of the township, we will lose people. We have a strong presence from north of the river and from wider not just within Warrandyte, but people are coming from Templestowe, from Wonga Park and other places, and we're really quite concerned that if we do relocate, we will lose a lot of our youth members and also a lot of our leaders. So we really need to be where we've always been, which is in the centre of Warrandyte.
There is already a history of this in Warrandyte. When the 150-year-old White House at Turin Avenue was demolished in 1991, the Warrandyte Girl Guides had to relocate from a dedicated space to 2 hours a week out of a room in Uniting Church. The lack of dedicated facilities was unsustainable for the local guides, who disbanded. Warrandyte Scouts are preparing a submission to Council as part of the community consultation.
One of our main things is that we really want Council to understand what a Scout group is and what a Scout group needs. It feels like, even though we had numerous conversations with the Council during this consultation with the review, that they didn't quite understand what a Scout group is. We keep trying to say that we are a youth group, that it is a group which is inclusive. So unlike sporting clubs where, especially as you get older, you have to be particularly good at a sport and particularly focused, within Scouting you don't have to be particularly good at anything. It's very inclusive. You can come along. We have a range of different activities, from swimming, kayaking, abseiling, building, craft, hiking, camping. There's a bit of everything. And so it is a really important place where kids in particular, all types of kids, in particular neurodiverse kids, can thrive because they find lots of interesting things to do. A lot of them, for the first time, meet their tribe. They make friends. A lot of parents will say it's the only extracurricular activity that their child does out of school, which is, it's a really important youth group, which is youth-led, that there is a bit of things for everything. And children from 5 up to the age of 24 can be involved in Scouting, and then you can go on and be a leader. So I think our main thing is showing Council and getting Council to understand what we need as a Scout group. We are, the same as a sports group that needs a designated hall where they can have all their memorabilia, their trophies, excuse me, and everything up on the walls. As a Scout group, we need that as well. We need a really strong sense of place. So our youth and our leaders need to know that that's our hall where we can have our things on the walls. The kids can put their drawings up. We can have our awards. We can have our, pictures up, everything that we need. All our different types of badge work and stuff is on the walls. We need a very strong visual presence in Warrandyte. That is the best way to get new members, is for people to know where the Scout Hall is. We need Council to understand that, and we need support in either helping to fix up our hall, to make it compliant and to make it safe, because we have a leader currently who's in a wheelchair who can't even use the bathroom at the hall when they come, which is not appropriate. We need, we either need our hall to be renovated by Council and that support, or we need to be relocated to a designated Scout Hall, which is known as the Warrandyte Scout Hall, not a shared place where we have to pack up each time we have a Scout night, which we just can't do. So I think they, for me, are the main two things that we really need to get across. And also to show through this petition, where we've almost got, or about 1,000 people so far have signed our petition, which has only been going for a couple of weeks, is to show that Scouts has a long and important history in Warrandyte and that we are well known. Everybody, I keep saying, loves the Scout. We are involved in everything from the market to the Anzac Day parade to Clean Up Australia Day, to most community events. You will find Warrandyte Scouts participating, whether it's the water slide or the jumping or the climbing tower at the festival. We are everywhere. So yeah, they're the things I think most important that we need to get across to Council.
Our ideal outcome is to have a fit for purpose designated Scout Hall in Warrandyte in a position that has access to a large area of parkland around it for outdoor activities, and is compliant with and safe for our Scouts. We don't have any problem with other people using the hall, and quite frequently it's used for birthday parties or other social events like end of year type things.
Or elections.
And of course it was used by Victorian Electoral Commission for the elections. So we have no problem with multi-use of our Scout Hall, as long as it's a scout hall.
Opportunity 2. Early years facilities. To advocate and partner with the state government to relocate Warrandyte Kindergarten to one of the primary schools in Warrandyte. To relocate Warrandyte Childcare and Preschool to a new building on the Warrandyte Kindergarten site, subject to relocation of the kindergarten to one of the primary schools and pending council support for childcare services in Warrandyte. Alternate direction, if relocation of kindergarten to primary school cannot be achieved, to develop a 2-room kindergarten on the current Warrandyte Kindergarten site. This will require a kindergarten to be temporarily relocated while the site is redeveloped. Continue to maintain and upgrade Warrandyte Childcare and Preschool to explore partnering opportunities with private or not-for-profit organisations to address infrastructure and service needs. Given the time of the year this review has come out, the diary is not surprised we have not had a response to our inquiries from the Taroona Avenue Kindergarten, as the Committee of Management is made up of parents and will not convene until school returns at the end of January. We spoke with Max Hooper from the Warrandyte Childcare and Preschool.
We welcome the review, and we're happy that the council's looking at our facility in particular, and I think they note that it's at the end of its useful life, and it's something that we feel and see day to day. So we welcome the review, and we think there's a great opportunity that the council's identified to move kinder and daycare facilities to, say, a primary school, to have an integrated care facility for kids. That's consistent with, I think, a lot of the policies at state and federal government level. So we think it's a positive sort of step in the right direction. But then we have some we've got some ideas about how some of the recommendations could factor in maybe more options in terms of our facility potentially being located at a primary school as well, which I'm not sure was flagged in the report yet.
Max expanded on the idea of some form of co-location and integration with one of the local primary schools as an opportunity they would like to see more detail on.
The thing we'd be hoping for is, that we make a move from the current site to, a primary school could be a great opportunity for us, because, it'd be an integrated sort of centre where you've got a school, a daycare, a long daycare, and a kindergarten, and new facilities would be great as well. We think the current premises we're at isn't really fit for purpose. It's on a very busy road, and you've got to go across traffic to sort of get into the car park, and that in itself presents a number of safety issues, as well as, I think, not having sort of the room in the facility to do planning and staff organisation. Like, it's hard to actually sort of get some quiet space to actually do all those admin things and planning things that you need to do to keep the centre running.
Max said the report recommendations to relocate the preschool from Masonic Avenue to Taroona Avenue would not be appropriate, given the space constraints and also the issue of how you integrate other users at the site if some sort of community hub was to replace the existing buildings.
The Taroona Avenue site, and this is something we've discussed among ourselves, doesn't feel like it meets our needs, both in terms of the size of the footprint of the facility, and I think that building's, they've said it's at end of life as well. So we certainly, if the number of service offerings has to increase, that site we feel isn't going to be big enough or fit for purpose.
Even if it's a knockdown rebuild of that building?
Well, yeah, I suppose we don't have that detail, so we don't know how big it could get, or how, and then how it impacts all the other sort of community hall in the area as well. That's the one bit where we're not sure about it, like how do you shuffle the decks to sort of suit everyone, sort of thing.
The main takeout from Max's interview was that while the preschool was in favour of development to improve their facilities, the report lacked the necessary detail, but he stressed that they were willing to work with council to achieve the best possible outcome.
We just wanted to emphasise we want to work with the council cooperatively and sort of, be able to navigate the complexities of, you know, potentially moving to a school. And we're pretty excited by the prospect of some of the state government subsidies, like the building blocks program, which I think the council mentions. It looks like it, you know, presents a real opportunity to invest in the childcare infrastructure and the kinder infrastructure. Yeah, and that's probably the only thing. That's the main thing I'd add as well, is that it just seems to be in step with a lot of federal and state government policies. And yeah, you know, who doesn't love just the efficiency of just all the kids being in one place, and you can, you know, do the school pickup, the kinder pickup, and the after hours. Yeah.
Opportunity 3. Warrandyte Community Centre. Explore opportunities for Warrandyte Community Centre to accommodate additional use such as toy library, youth programs, Warrandyte Historical Museum. Address building functionality issues including A. Providing a rubbish bin enclosure. B. Improved accessibility and safety around the outside of the building, including the car park and along Mitchell Avenue side of the building. C. Improve wayfinding both outside and inside the building. D. Implement a more coordinated approach to operating and managing the community centre to encourage cooperation between tenants and users, facilitate increased use of the centre, and provide clear communication pathways for raising and addressing the issues. On this issue, the diary spoke with Natalie Reinhardt from Warrandyte Neighbourhood House.
We as a community centre have changed a lot since the initial consultation has actually taken place, and we've expanded into a range of different areas. This notion that we're actually underutilised is completely incorrect. We constantly have just sat down with the manager the other day and went through, we have very few spots that are actually available to even start the new things that our community wants to do. So this notion that we're actually underutilised is completely inaccurate.
Natalie addressed the notion of integrating more services into the community centre, such as the toy library and Warrandyte Historical Society.
I think that the way that they're going about this is rather haphazard. They're just kind of going, we don't know what to do with this group, so we'll shove them in here. We don't know what to do with this group, so we'll shove them in here. Actually, rather than really going, what is the communities that might actually band together? So if we're looking at the toy library, why aren't we looking at actually placing that with the childcare centre? Why aren't we looking at placing that with our kinder groups and all that sort of thing, where you'd actually have certain groups where they can benefit together? The Historical Society, once again, I'm not quite sure what they're hoping to get out of that, other than not actually upgrade the facilities. To put the Historical Society with us would very much be hiding them away. It would actually take away from the street traffic where people are wandering through beautiful Warrandyte when they come up to visit and go, oh, hang on, there's a museum and stuff here, let's go and have a look in there. So in my mind, what they're thinking about doing is incredibly haphazard. It takes away from the specialness of these groups. And I don't think that, as I said, that the notion that we're underutilised as a community house is accurate at all.
The Victory Room is considered in the report to be underutilised, a point that the Neighbourhood House disagrees on, as they often use it as overflow. The room also gets good use by ad hoc renters for parties, meetings and other events on a fairly regular basis.
We run a number of our groups there and so on, and often we do have people that need to use the meeting space for a whole range of different reasons, let alone for us. So this notion that you could just kind of shove, I don't know who, the historical group into the Victory Room, I'm not quite sure what they're thinking in regards to that, because they haven't come back and talked to us further. They've just released this report and then obviously gave a very short period of time for us to be able to consult and grow as a group.
Natalie does note that there are some good aspects to the opportunity, such as improving wayfinding around the community centre.
There are things in this review that are good ideas. I think, given the amount of tourists and so on that do come out into Warrandyte, when we talk about Warrandyte, we can't just talk about the residents that live here as much as we adore it. We need to be thinking about the fact that this is actually a really nice flag in Manningham's cap. because we constantly have people coming out to utilise our river and our spaces and so on. In a broader sense, it brings people into the catchment overall because of Warrandyte. So, where we can improve some of that signage, some of the pathways, all those types of things, I think it's actually in Manningham's best interest to make this space better, not just shove a number of little organisations into some sort of grouping that doesn't actually make any logical sense whatsoever.
Opportunity 4. Sporting facilities in Warrandyte Reserve. 1. Explore opportunities to increase the use of Warrandyte Sports Club Pavilion, particularly on weekdays during the day, by reviewing existing lease arrangements in collaboration with user groups. 2. Progressively improve sporting facilities in accordance with council policy and capital works programs, including pavilions, storage areas, outdoor shelters, and access to public toilets, in consultation with sporting groups. We've received a statement from Phil Treby of the Warrandyte Sports Group.
Manningham City Council engaged consultants to conduct a review of facility usage and shortcomings in mid-2024. We were invited to consult and arranged a meeting with them, attempting to provide representation from each member club. However, at the time, Karina from the Warrandyte Junior Football Club was not available. The meeting took place at the Rooms on the 30th of August 2024. The council indicated that they had identified the area, rooms, 2 ovals, netball courts, skate ramp and tennis courts as a central area within the Warrandyte community. They want to develop a long-term plan for the precinct. This was presented as a discovery meeting to gain understanding of the current status of each group and what their hopes and dreams are for the future. Each of the representatives did their utmost to indicate to the consultants how extensively the rooms are used both during the day and in training and game time, as well as the community support events that we host. Based on a glance at the 7 recommendations in the draft report, the consultants have identified the Troona precinct as an area that can be utilised more effectively by upgrading the Senior Citizens Community Hall, relocating the kindergarten, and exploring additional uses at the pavilion. We have been waiting for the next stage and can now see that the consultants appear to be continuing to recommend to Manningham City Council that the pavilion is underutilised. My initial thoughts are that there certainly needs to be strong feedback to Manningham City Council that the facility cannot be shared any more extensively than it currently is, and that any voice that puts that message forward should be supported by the Warrandyte Sporting Group and member clubs.
Opportunity 5. Warrandyte Historical Museum. Explore options for addressing the long-term needs of Warrandyte Historical Museum, including retaining the Historical Museum in its current location and addressing functionality defects, e.g. storage, workspace, and toilet facilities. B. Relocating the Historical Museum to other premises, e.g. Warrandyte Community Centre, pending further investigation. The diary spoke with David Carty from Warrandyte Historical Society.
Yeah, I guess our initial take was a little bit of surprise with regard to an option of even considering a relocation of the museum. That did sort of catch us a little bit off guard, and that's really because we strongly believe that the museum is probably one of the most fit for purpose buildings in the Warrandyte Community Facilities arrangement. That did catch us off guard a little bit, but we are looking at it from a constructive perspective and looking to work with council to resolve a few of the challenges that the building has, with a view of maintaining its presence and significance in the Yarra Street precinct.
Similarly to the Warrandyte Scout Hall, the report noted a number of issues with the old post office, specifically flooding overlays, toilets, and DDA compliance.
It's fair to say there are some challenges with access, certainly for disability access. However, the one end of the front veranda is at the footpath level, and there is a very small step up into one of the front doors. The veranda also has access around to the rear So I think that could be dealt with reasonably easily. The toilet aspect is something we have put forward to council in the past, and really not as a public facility, but purely for our volunteers that are manning the museum, and that they don't have to lock up the museum to use the public facility that's only sort of 50 metres away in the car park. So we don't think that's a showstopper by any stretch.
Yeah.
In terms of limited storage, well, again, in the context of perhaps including a toilet facility, we did draw up some very basic plans that might see us increase a little bit of room in our archive room in the museum to create a little bit more storage. To council's credit, with the restumping work that was done at the museum sort of 12 months ago, they did provide us with a temporary storage facility in the museum grounds, and that was purely because part of the restumping required us not to store anything under the museum going forward, so the council did provide us with a temporary storage facility. So that's alleviated a little bit of those concerns, but ultimately, a little bit more storage would be helpful, but again, not a showstopper in terms of the museum's function.
Yeah. How serious do you think the land subject to inundation issue is?
Yeah, look, I mean, we understand, I guess, the concerns around that, but the reality is, since 1934, when the museum was still the post office and was inundated, there's not been another occurrence of inundation since that time. And with the management of the Yarra now, the Yarra catchment, and the way the river levels are managed, we just think that it's a very, very small risk. And the likelihood, even if it was a significant flood event now, the water level reaching the building is just almost negligible, really, to be honest. We did have a look at some data and just showed that in 2024, the flood recording, the level was measured at 1.63 metres, and that the 1 in 100 year benchmark is a less than 1% perceived risk. So it's I think it's not really a problem for the museum.
Yeah.
David then spoke to the building's current utilisation, and that relocation of the museum was not even something the Society had considered.
We can't see any environment where that would work. The museum, as it's evolved over time, and since the Society's inception back in 1976, will be our 50th birthday this year. Thank you. That we've worked tirelessly. The committees of the past and present have worked tirelessly, and the museum is very much a very bespoke space. All of our displays are bespoke to the space that they're set up for. We couldn't see any scenario where we could provide the community with a significant historical representation of Warrandyte in an environment where we might be required to move those displays in and out at certain times. The other thing that the report suggested that was looking at was about, improving utilisation. And with regard to that, I think it's important that we're sharing this with council, that the museum is open every weekend from 1:30 to 4:30. It's used twice a week by our archive team. We have a Monday group and a Thursday group, and then we have throughout the year frequency of visitations from school groups, other interested community organisations, and other groups that might just have an interest in a topic regarding Warrandyte. So we had a look at our numbers, and in the year just gone, 2025, we've had just under 4,000 visitors through the museum. And so in terms of its utilisation, again, I think we can say with some confidence that the museum's well utilised, and I think that also takes a little bit of burden away from council, because we're there, and whilst council assists us with maintenance issues, the day-to-day well-being of the facility is maintained by the society.
With few places in Manningham that still retain a number of their historic buildings in situ, the old post office and the society's presence within it forms part of Warrandyte's rich cultural context, which, alongside the bush environment, is a major drawcard for tourism.
The Yarra Street precinct and the historical overlay that is governed by, there are a number of contributory buildings to the streetscape. The old post office, the museum, is obviously really significant in its history of the township. It's located across the road from the Grand, another contributing building to the streetscape, and still being used for its purpose as it was built and designed. The Gospel Chapel next door, although no longer operating as a church, but is still a significant contributing building. And those buildings at that end of Yarra Street really tell a story. Then, of course, we've got the Mechanics Institute Hall, which is also a significant building, being used for a different purpose, but the building and the form of the building is historical context, as is the bakery as well. They're significant contributing buildings, and they tell a story of Warrandyte that is important to retain. In fact, from the society's perspective, we have information on a self-guided walk that takes you along the journey of those buildings. We did work with council and have installed plaques on each of those buildings to give a context of their historical nature. And really, I think it's so important for Warrandyte as a town that those historical buildings are retained in their location for context of the village as we know it, and albeit it's changed, but having those landmarks in their location just provides real clarity for the historical context of those buildings.
Opportunities 6 and 7 speak to making better use of Coleman Reserve Precinct and better collaboration between council and non-council buildings. The various community groups and organisations in Warrandyte are meeting to discuss a collective response to council, as well as addressing the individual needs of each organisation. At time of recording, this group was still in the process of forming and were not at the stage to present an official position. However, Natalie Reinhardt, who is leading this group's response, spoke to the diary about what the residents can do to support the collective and individual organisations directly impacted by the publication of this review.
I think it's really important that as many voices in our community get on board, not looking at those options that are put forward by the councillors, this is what's going to happen. I think requesting further time for us to get together as a community is what we're hoping to do. So certainly saying that this has been pushed through far too quickly and without enough time for us to be able to get together as a community and work out the best way forward for us who live here. To have a bit of respect for all the different voices that need to be brought in. I would also say that the Scouts, anybody who's driving past the Scouts area, they actually have a thing up where you can go scan their QR code and actually sign off on the Saving the Scouts Hall initiative. I think that's really important. And certainly, I think just being very clear that as a community, we feel like we have been pushed aside in terms of what we need, and that this next part of the consultation needs to be done with us and not just their ideas laid on us, and this is the way that it's going to be.
Council have stated that this is only the beginning of the conversation, and there will be further discussion with affected groups. on how these opportunities are advanced. Feedback on this report closes February 2. There is a feedback form on Council's Your Say page at yoursay.manningham.vic.gov.au or sign the Scouts petition at sites.google.com/view/Warrandyte-Scouts. If you would like to join the conversation, email your thoughts to editor@warrandytediary.com.au. Thanks for listening.